Good morning. You're tuning in to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. It is 9:04 a.m. It is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. This meeting is in Building 1, Room 280. This meeting is being live streamed on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I am Carolina Mejia, Chair of the Board. I am joined by Vice Chair Ty Menser in the boardroom, Commissioner Gary Edwards via Zoom, and he's in transit and he'll be in the boardroom soon, as well as County Manager Ramiro Chavez, Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and many other staff members joining us via Zoom. The first item for today is the COVID-19 update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Interim Director for Public Health. Going through the COVID update here, been doing in response since January 20th, 2020. Currently, Thurston County cases as of March 13th were 46,087. Unfortunately, Thurston County deaths are at 392 since the start of the pandemic. Our 14-day case count per 100,000 population is at 151.9. That's as of March 13th. To give some perspective, last week it was 255.7, and the week before that it was 640.5. So it's trending, continues to trend in a positive direction. Hospitalizations, our current COVID patients in the hospitals are 9. Last week that was 25. 2 weeks ago it was 24. So that's also trending in a positive direction. Number of patients on ventilators is 0. Last week it was 3. So that is a really good number, obviously, and I have not seen it at 0 for quite some time. ICU bed capacity, 7 adults, 0 pediatrics, and acute bed availability is 34 adults, 0 pediatrics. Congregate care outbreaks, we've had 185 congregate care outbreaks since March of 2020, and currently 18 congregate care outbreaks are under investigation, but that number is also trending down. Thurston County vaccination statistics are all as of March 12th. Total doses given in Thurston County is 505,978. Percentage of people initiating vaccination in Thurston County is 71.7%. And then the percentage of people fully vaccinated is 64.9%. The percentage of people initiating vaccine 16 in age and older is 81.4%, and the percentage of people fully vaccinated age 16 and older is 73.7%. The percentage of population initiating vaccine over the age of 5 or 5 and older, I should say, is 75.8%, and the percent of population fully vaccinated age 5 and older is 68.6%. And the percentage of people eligible for a booster dose and have received it is 58.4%. Some additional discussion points is vaccinations. We continue to do vaccine clinic at Capitol Mall. It's 5 days a week based on demand. The days it's not open are Tuesday and Wednesday, so it's open Thursday through Monday for vaccinations. And again, appointments are encouraged, but walk-ins are definitely welcome. For testing, vaccine testing, today, doing Rochester again. This is similar to what I've reported in past weeks, but Rochester today from 10 to 1 in the roof parking lot. Tomorrow we'll be at Lacey at 3811 Pacific Avenue. Thursday in Olympia at the Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at the Evergreen State College as well. All the test sites this week are planned to be from 10 to 1, but we'll close early if testing capacity is reached. Revised state masking requirements did go into effect on March 12th, but again, certain sectors are still going to be required to mask. And then the vaccination for 6 months to 4-year-olds, the vaccination capability, we are planning to ensure that we have the capacity once that the 6-month to 4-year-old vaccination is approved to be able to handle the anticipated surge for that. We're looking and planning for a May timeframe for that vaccine potentially to be approved. And then FEMA funding continues through June 30th for eligible COVID expenditures. With that, I'll turn this over to Dr. Abdulmalik for her portion of the update.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. We are seeing positive trends in COVID-19 transmission here in Thurston County, as Director Harden shared. We did receive updated masking guidance. I did want to just emphasize a few points for the public. as well, that there are still some situations in which masking is required, such as the day 6 to 10 after testing positive for COVID-19. Just a quick review that once folks test positive for COVID-19, they're to isolate at home for 5 days. And if they meet criteria to end isolation, meaning fever-free for 24 hours without use of fever-reducing medications, and their symptoms have gotten significantly better, then folks may leave at-home isolation, but are still required to mask for between day 6 and day 10, either after symptom onset or after testing positive. For folks who are close contacts, so less than 6 feet, of a confirmed case for 15 minutes or more over a period of 24 hours. At this point in time, the strong recommendation is to wear a mask for 10 days after that exposure. Get tested for COVID-19 on day 3 to day 5 post-exposure, and then of course get tested again if symptoms develop and stay home, just to ensure that transmission hasn't occurred. In addition to those situations, masks are still required in healthcare settings, congregate shelter settings, long-term care settings, as well as public transportation, and it may be required by individual businesses and employers as those facilities have their own guidelines. In terms of what we are looking for, we are continuing to monitor our outbreaks in our community. They have been significantly reduced, as well as other settings where folks have regular testing, and we continue to see a sustained decline in COVID-19 transmission. So there are a lot of hopeful elements in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that, I'm open to any questions anyone may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No,
Commissioner Menser?
Commissioner Edwards, your connection is off.
He's on mute, so I'm guessing the audio is just really delayed.
Yeah.
Dr. Abdulmalik, looking at the graphs, it looks to me like we've reached pre-Delta levels in terms of, kind of and you're nodding, so looks like I'm reading that correctly, which is great. Gosh, I had a second question and now it slipped out of my head. I'll go to County Manager, maybe I'll think of it.
Okay, County Manager, go ahead.
Doctor, do you know the transmission rate for Thurston County? I think a couple of weeks ago I mentioned the magic number was 1, above 1 concerning, below 1 was where we need to be. Do we have that number available?
So the R naught is definitely below 1, which is that transmission rate. I will look. I can update and see if we have a specific number for that for the Washington State data, and I can definitely send that to you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I remembered my question, if I could.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Menser.
Okay, just wanted to check in. So as Omicron was kind of coming down, we were hearing about a couple of kind of sub-variants or something, and they didn't seem to be a concern, but they were being watched. I haven't heard much about any of that in the last 3 weeks. I'm just wondering, were those just kind of the only ones, and they're not? I mean, what's the status of the variant situation as we sit here today?
Yeah, so we're not seeing. So initially we were concerned about potential impact from, so Omicron is BA.1. We were concerned about impact from BA.2. So far here in Washington State, there hasn't, that variant has not gotten a significant amount of traction. Additionally, a Delta Omicron hybrid has been identified in several countries. In Europe, this was not unanticipated, as because of the way that we still had circulating Delta when Omicron was just taking off, that there were people who were infected with both variants. And so sometimes recombinant variants do occur. At this point, tracking levels, so the WHO is watching it, and I know our CDC colleagues are watching it as well. But at this point, we don't, circulating levels of those variants are very low, and we don't have any safety signals at this point.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Dr. A. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next item, which is homeless strategies. And Keely Marino, there she is.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Very brief update for you today. Just wrapping up on the hoteling. Of course, the county stopped hoteling at the end of February, and Olympia Mutual Aid Partners took over for about 20 of those households. So overall, there were 59 households that were served during that period of time between December 7th through the 22nd of February. 20 of those households continued on with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners. While they were, before they moved to Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, there were 4 people who accessed housing and about 3 that were waiting for beds. I have not gotten an update as to whether they did move into treatment beds at this time, but I know that there were 8. There are 2 folks currently staying at the Olympia Inn until today that will be moving into housing. They're just waiting for their units to be ready. So that's another 2 people. And then 4 others are extending their stay beyond today, which I'll explain in a second, because they are on the bypass list for Unity Commons. So we're waiting to hear if they get moved into that project. There's another person who might hear back this morning about a treatment bed. So we're just, all of this to say that there were a number of individuals that did access housing while they were there in treatment. Today, though, is move out day. And so I will be attending Olympia Inn and helping out however I can with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners in their process of helping people exit. Other than that, this next Monday, the Homeless Housing Hub is hosting our annual Homeless Hero Award luncheon. Of course, it's virtual, so it's a eat your own food at your own house kind of a luncheon. But we will be honoring a direct service provider who has been nominated by the system and voted on by the system. So it's a pretty special event. We've added in the last 2 years the Anna Schlecht Legacy Award. So whoever is chosen as the homeless hero for this year, $1,000 will be going to their agency through the Anna Schlecht Legacy Fund. So you are all invited. It's Monday, the 21st at noon, and it will be on Zoom. And that is all I have for you today.
Thank you, Keely. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Munzer?
No.
No questions for me, Keely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, review the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of March 15th, 2022. So we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 agenda. Approval of the board meeting minutes from March 8th, 2022. Then at 2:05, we'll have 2 presentations. The first one is the state of the library. And County Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a yearly event where the Executive Director of the Timberland Regional Library, Cheryl Haywood, will come and give a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners. I always look forward to all the innovative approach that Cheryl has implemented to reach out to the members of our community through the library system. And I'm not sure if she's going to be in person or in Zoom. She will be joining us via Zoom.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Our next item, our presentation, is the Proclamation for Women's History Month.
Yeah, this is not in the Commissioner. Madam Chair, you requested to be part of your agenda this afternoon. We have a draft proclamation, I believe, for your review. Hopefully we can get that in place. And also we're trying to see if anybody, members of our community can join this afternoon. Go ahead, Amy.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. We have received a request from the Zonta Club to move this to next week so they can have some members attend to accept the proclamation.
So is that acceptable by the board, move this item for next week? So members of the committee attending?
Looks like we don't have presentations next week. So Commissioners, how do you feel about it?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm
Two
good.
thumbs up.
Okay, so you have 3 thumbs up for that?
Okay, we'll move this item to next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board.
Since this is the first time in a couple months, the board room will be open for in-person testimony. I'm sure you will be receiving some testimony this afternoon. So I'm not sure what the subject. You have an email from a citizen that may be probably the subject of that testimony also this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. And then County Manager's update.
Yes, I'd like to follow up to a comment that you received last week asking the question related to what has been the 2022 flood response in the county. So I will report the board declared an emergency as a result of the flooding. We just learned this morning the governor has submitted their appropriate documentation to the federal government to ask them to declare a federal declaration. If that is the case, then we'll get access, hopefully, to funding if we qualify for that. But in terms of that response, we serve 118 individuals and 5 businesses. We spent almost $21,000 in flood debris disposal vouchers, and additionally stopped at the Rainier and Rochester drop boxes. We conducted 73 debris transactions related to the flood. We spent almost $583,000 related to our flood response that includes sandbags, the road crews, debris management, etc. And also we spent $2,460 in the well water testing, which we were able to serve 82 well samples as a result of the flood free to those citizens impacted by the flood. And also, the United Way spent almost $10,000 in distribution, help distribution, which include 10 households, which they help overall 42 individuals. The overall response, the combined response, nears $615,000 as a result of that. Just want to report to that. That was a question related to the flood response, so this afternoon will be in more detail. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I think Commissioner Menzer is going to ask it for me.
Commissioner Menzer?
You were going fast there. Can you, when you were saying flood disposal debris vouchers, and then you said something about containers, or can you repeat that?
What we did is we spent overall in the debris management close to $21,000. And that includes additional stuff in the Rainier and Rochester drop boxes.
Okay, that's what I missed.
And overall, we had 73 debris transactions related to helping the citizens affected by the flood.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll move forward on to consent items, and there's only 2. The first one, 3A, appointment to the Lewis Mason Gershon Area Agency on Aging.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The board discussed this particular appointment last week, and for your consideration, is to appoint Ms. Anna Schleck to the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency of Aging as the Thurston County representative for the term of April 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. Commissioner Edwards serves in this board, and I believe the board is supporting this particular appointment.
Yes, that is true, and I'm just wondering why the short term.
Anna is filling the remainder of a term of a member who resigned.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully she'll realize.
This is the Anna Schlecht of the Anna Schlecht
Yes.
Legacy Housing Award.
The Anna Schleck.
Okay, great.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to item B, which is the approval of the voucher list for the week of February 28th, 2022. And are there any questions, comments on that voucher list?
No question.
No,
Okay. We'll move forth on to department items, community planning and economic development. Item 4A, official docket of the comprehensive plan and development code amendments for 2022-2023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a matter of background for the citizens' benefit, each county planning under the Growth Management Act, which is governed by RCW 36.70A470, is required to have a procedure for any interest person to suggest comprehensive plan and development code amendments in Thurston County. On January 12, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners reviewed the preliminary docket submissions, which include 34 proposals, including 23 carryover proposals from the previous official docket and 11 new proposals combined on the comprehensive plan as well as the development code docket. The board requested 3 additional proposals at that time. As a result of that, between January 27 and February 16, the board accepted public comments related to the proposed preliminary docket items. On March 3rd and March 10th, the board held follow-up briefings related to this the series of proposals. And on March 10th, the board made preliminary decisions as to what items you would like to include on both the comprehensive plan docket as well as the development code docket. I can walk you through, if you like, the specifics of those items, but staff is going to go in detail this afternoon, outlining what the decisions have made. I recorded the votes on each of those items. I'll be more than happy to walk you through individually, but this action is really for you to consider approval of the decisions, preliminary decisions you made just last week. Josh, Chris.
No, thank you, County Manager. That's a great summary. And I will say that it is important to recall that we have the public process where comment period can be provided. That's where we, community planning, bundles all those comments and provides them to the Board of County Commissioners. But this is a legislative issue, so all applicants should feel free to have engagement with the Board of County Commissioners at any point on any topic of the applications. Our job is to facilitate a review of the comments that were received, but if the board has any direction different from that, from any other perspectives, we're open to receive. We serve the board.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I had occasion to talk to Mr. Brewer, who had put in an application within the Tumwater UGA down at 99 and 93rd. And he felt the information that we were given last week was inaccurate. And that in fact, Tumwater did not have concerns about this. So I'm just asking if, I don't know if any of my other seatmates talked to him, if there's anything. It seems like maybe it wasn't quite as adamant as the 2 docket items from Lacey in the Lacey UGA that we added to Lacey's process. So I'm just wondering if we can still, by this afternoon, add that UGA adjustment for Tumwater. I believe I was outvoted, and this will sound like I've got sour grapes about the issue, but that's not the case. The applicant felt that we had information that was not correct. So that's where I'm at on that issue.
May I follow up, Madam Chair?
Go ahead, County Manager.
There has been additional communication from the City of Tumwater. I got an email from Mr. Michael Maglock. He is the Director of Community Development related to this item. And this is an email to the Director of CPED. And it says as follows: this email is intended to document the City of Tumwater's position on the above referenced matter. Brad Mitford, the planning manager, wrote a letter to your office regarding the position of the City of Tumwater, which that's the letter that we presented to you, outlining their position. And also staff relayed that information, the clarification is that as a follow-up with a phone call to your staff, which staff related that phone call to you as well, clarifying their position. The letter opposed the docketing of this matter based on a technical review of the proposal. While we stand by that letter, Brad followed up with a phone call to let your staff know that we understand the possible benefits of our partner with the Tumwater School District in their challenge in securing school sites to serve a growing population. Eventual development of the area in question will extend utilities and will make the school sites more economically viable. This email was submitted yesterday, Monday. So the information the staff provided to you was up to date and accurate based on the information that we received at that time. Anything else, Josh, on that?
No, that's exactly correct. Yeah, all we can do is present the information that we have. So there were no inaccuracies in our presentation, but as of yesterday, Tumwater has updated their perspective.
Madam Chair.
So I believe Commissioner Edwards would like to, if I may, you are requesting the board to open up for conversation, perhaps a vote, the proposal, that's the BART Holdings, which is Tumwater UGA. And just to remind the proposal, the board 2-1, Commissioner Messer and Commissioner Mejia voted to keep it on the preliminary docket. And Commissioner Edwards voted to add it to the docket. So that was the vote, the preliminary vote that you took on that. So what I believe Commissioner Edwards is asking the board whether the board would like to revisit that item. And if so, we'd like to make as a motion, and if there is a second, then the conversation will continue.
Yes, sir. That is correct. I'm glad, I didn't see that clarification letter, but regardless, I feel that there is adequate reasons to move ahead with this, not only to benefit the Tumwater School District at some time in the future, but to help us create economic development here in Thurston County. And I would guess this probably has not seen all the review it needs to see from the City of Tumwater. That's the only way I can look at that. So yes, I am making a motion to put this on the docket.
For reconsideration.
For reconsideration to put this on the docket.
Is there a second on that, if I may?
I'll second, just to have a discussion on it.
I'll just pipe up, I guess. While I do, as I said at the docket hearing, I do see potential benefits to this project. I don't support citing schools in faraway rural areas. There's dozens of reasons why that's terrible policy, so that's not a consideration. I would not be willing to vote for this until we revisited the staffing situation that we've got with the items that we already approved, because I got outvoted on 2 or 3 items that I didn't want to add above and beyond, not that I didn't want to add them, but that I thought were above and beyond kind of our staffing limit. So from my perspective, I think, we didn't actually do this at the tail end of the decisions, but I think we're way beyond staffing capacity, and I'd want to see kind of where that landed in terms of deciding what my position would be on Commissioner Edwards' motion.
Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I would follow up with, if we ended up not having adequate staff, I think this could be a good example of farming this out and allowing the process to not be held up because of our inability to assign adequate staff to it. And in fact, charge that cost to the group that is developing it. And they can go through all the requirements of the UGA issues and the growth management issues and coordinate with Tumwater. Let them take that on as an expense of their project to be able to move forward with this and see how that pans out for future issues that we may or may not be able to farm out. I don't see that this is a big issue other than it's being kind of held up through the bureaucratic process. In my estimation, it seems like that's what's got this held right now. And if we couldn't do it ourselves, I think we could farm it out at expense to the developer.
Can I clarify, County Manager? We did not remove this.
Is it the preliminary?
We kept it on the preliminary docket. Yeah. Just wanted to
So just for the public, the items the board voted to keep it on the preliminary docket, automatically you will revisit those next year.
Right.
So just for clarification.
And Madam Chair, that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm trying to prevent the delay of, holding it over. What's the point of holding it over if it's got good potential for all parties involved? And I would guess that that's going to take working a little bit with Tumwater to see where they're really at on it.
So
That's all.
yeah, thank you, sir. So my whole point on this was the reason I decided to add it to the preliminary docket was, one, I asked Chris a specific question about whether the industrial studies would affect this light industrial setting, and she said yes, the industrial studies would cover the light industrial zoning. And so that's one of the reasons I decided to add it over. But in terms of the staffing concerns, there were items last year, for example, the Beaver Creek matter that didn't get touched by staff because they were busy on other things. So this, if we were to add it onto the docket, this wouldn't have a high priority for me at all. There are other matters that are much higher priority that have been on the docket for a long time that really need to get resolved and, should be a priority for staff. And so for me, the whole thing is, what's the point in adding it to the docket? And maybe this is something staff can answer me. If we were to add it to the docket, what's the difference if staff don't have the capacity to work on this, than adding it on to the preliminary docket?
So thank you, Commissioner. So first, in terms of prioritization, that'll be the conversation that the board has next after we decide what's on the official docket. And that's where we'll discuss with the board the way that we engage in the work. So Commissioner Edwards mentioned farming it out. We can have that conversation with the board in terms of work plan and prioritization after we know what's on the docket. And then in terms of why it matters, preliminary versus official docket, I think that the applicant would say that being on the official docket provides a level of security when they're going out for investment and funding for different properties. Whether or not it's worked on, I can't say, but that I'm speaking from the applicant's perspective. But from the staff's perspective, we have been overloaded before, and I'm sure we'll be overloaded again. But the terms of prioritization and that work product and how we accomplish the docket items will happen in the next briefing of the board. So in terms of logistics, we can shift, like I said, as I started at the outset. If the board has a different direction, we have the capability to change whatever we need to before this afternoon. And I would say, for the answer to your question again, the applicant's perspective is it's always more beneficial to be on the official docket as opposed to the preliminary docket. But I think that the board is, you've done a nice job of making sure that staff is honored and that we can do what's on the official docket. So we're good with whatever you decide.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Commissioner Menzer,
So-
please, your question.
Commissioner Menzer, you have a question?
Just a comment, but I'll follow you, Madam Chair, when you're done.
I understand that, of course, the citizen would like to move this forward. But, it was, I felt the letter from Tumwater, and they did have those conversations, but, the letter from Tumwater was a little delayed as well, saying, oh, just a heads up, this is, our opinion is different. I'll just leave it at that for now. Commissioner Menzer, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I am really focused in this decision-making on economic development, and my priorities are the Lacey Joint Plan and the 7 or 8 important projects that are tied up in the Grand Mountain Sub-Area Plan that are much more long-standing and have, are directly and either overlapping or within a identified boundary for urban development. So those are my priorities. I hope we can get to an evaluation of this bar holdings matter because I think there's some potential there. But given where we're at with staffing and as the county manager laid out, we had, what did you say? We brought 23 projects forward. We added 11 new projects. So, that's, I haven't been here that many years, but I think that's a pretty, given, I think it's 5 staff we have, that long-range planners that were, Josh can tell me if I'm wrong, but given the staffing and the docket, I think we've got quite a schedule ahead of us, and staff's doing a great job of accelerating. We've seen Josh laid out at the docket how we're accelerating the number of projects that we're able to handle in a given year. So hopefully it's right around the corner that we'll be caught up, but more things come in down the pike. So I think I'm comfortable with where we landed on this one, all things considered.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Edwards has a follow-up.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess my position is still the same, but maybe I could articulate the why a little better, and that is that time is money in the real world. Delay costs money for businesses anytime that they've got a project. I don't see any environmental issues here whatsoever. I see process issues and bureaucratic issues. As Josh pointed out, if this was put on the docket, doesn't mean it's going to get done or even get prioritized. But if we don't put it on the docket, then we can't have that discussion and make a decision to move forward, or even whether or not we would contemplate possibly farming this out. I've been advocating for farming out work for the last 5 years. I won't say every jurisdiction does it, but many, many jurisdictions around the state of Washington that are regulated under the Growth Management Act farm out their activities, and not all activities. I'm sure they pick and choose. So although that's not been one of our, I've not won that argument, if you will, but I like to continue to have the discussion, and we can't even have the discussion if we don't put it on the docket, really. So if we put it on the docket, it gives an option. If we don't, it just stymies everything for one more year. So I just don't see a downside of putting it on the docket at this point in time. So that's the reason for my position now.
So Madam Chair, Commissioner Edwards' motion was to bring this item up for reconsideration. You.
County Manager, Josh raised his hand. 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Sorry, Josh.
Josh.
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that. Either way would have been fine. I just wanted to jump in on a couple quick things. First off, I would say that Tumwater, just to clarify at this point, Tumwater hasn't necessarily changed their position. They clarified the nuance formally in an email. So I know it's kind of a sticking point, but their point has always been it's technically, I think that the letter says technically not possible or not appropriate, but that they also like the schools. Sorry, I don't have the letter in front of me. I apologize. But we tried to relay that in the briefing. So Tumwater's position hasn't changed. They've just clarified the nuance for it. And in terms of the professional services, the farming out that Commissioner Edwards continues to relay on, I would thank the board again for approving in the budget for the first time the tool of using professional services. So the board has now finally approved that concept, and we're working to do some of the external review. So thank you for that. And I interrupted the county manager as he was doing a good job going through the process.
So, Madam Chair, the motion before you with a second by you, Commissioner Edwards, would like to open this item for reconsideration. There's a second. Do you mind calling for a vote on that reconsideration request?
Okay. And so,
So I understand the motion is to reconsider and open up for reconsideration. You will re-vote on this item. So,
yes, sir. That's right.
So this the request is not to put it on the docket itself.
but to reconsider?
Yeah, for reconsideration. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote for Commissioner Edwards' motion to reconsider voting on the holding site-specific land use and rezoning amendment. So with that, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
I'm abstaining because I don't have the information about the overall staffing that I would need to make that decision.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye.
So this item has been moved for reconsideration. So based on the information that you have, the current vote is again to remind the board, Commissioner Mejia and Commissioner Menzer voted to put in the preliminary docket, and Commissioner Edwards voted to add it to the docket. So this open up that vote again. So if you'd like to go through that process.
Ramiro, could you forward me that email really quickly? I'm sorry to interrupt you. That Tumwater sent you, I think.
It was sent to Josh, but I'll send it to the board. Yeah. Give me a second.
County Manager, I have it up and can send it if it's easier.
Yeah, please do. Thank you. And please send it to the 3 board members.
Yes, sir.
So that was a 2-0 vote to reconsider,
Yeah.
and now we're reconsidering?
No, you're reconsidering it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
any discussion on this item?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
So I don't reiterate everything I've already said. I'm moving to put this on the docket. That's my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? One second, I think I just got the email.
And maybe I just, while the chair is reading that email, I'll just remind the public, you're watching the process of sausage being made today. And sometimes you have to let it percolate a little bit, simmer.
I mean, I have a question. Did we ever receive any letter from the Tumwater School District saying, you know, they supported this because of the reasons stated by the city of Tumwater?
No, I went back through and looked at the comments, and we have no comment from the city of, or excuse me, the school district, Tumwater.
Chair, may I comment while you're looking at that?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I know my seatmate, Commissioner Menzer, doesn't feel that schools ought to be anywhere out of the core, I guess, of municipalities. I guess that's the only way I can take the comment, where I feel schools are better off near the fringes of our communities rather than in the core. I feel that way about living conditions as well. And I would say for any of you that wonder why, take a look at what's going on in Europe right now, where all the bombing of all those residential apartment complexes are taking place, and schools. Targets are real easy to find when they're consolidated. I feel a diverse, open, spread out society is a healthier society. So that's just a philosophical difference that maybe I have. But so I don't see that it's any kind of impediment to having a school on the fringes of the community. And I see that Josh has his hand up.
Go ahead, Josh.
Not to answer that question or that comment from Commissioner Edwards, but that jogged my memory to search my email. I do have an email from the Director of Facilities at the Tumwater School District that I received yesterday afternoon also. Essentially, he's saying they looked at this property and not having utility access was one of the reasons we rejected this parcel. If utilities were extended to it, that would be beneficial for both our current holdings by making it easier and less expensive to develop them into school sites, as well as community assets. So you asked the question if we received any information, and unfortunately I didn't get this to the county manager yesterday, but I'm reading it now. My apologies for not having that done sooner. So not to get into the discussion of where schools should be, but I could forward that email to the commissioners as well if you'd like.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happens is schools are just cheaper and easier to cite. And I can provide Commissioner Edwards a stack of studies from here to the sky explaining how crime goes up, communities are less healthy, communities are less safe, vehicle miles traveled, climate effects. It's just, he doesn't believe in growth management. I do. It's a philosophical difference. It's just, let's just leave it at that.
So, you know, I spoke with Mr. Brewer and, you know, he gave me kind of the same reasoning. And well, I see, you know, again, I don't know what the difference would be and having it on the docket when, and again, I'm seeing this from a staffing concern where we don't have the staff. And while Commissioner Edwards says, you know, well, we can farm it out, I feel like there are other items that we could possibly assist with that have been pending for so much longer on our docket. And for me, those are the priorities. I mean, the agricultural studies, the Grand Mound, they've been waiting for years and years and years. And those are my definite priorities is how can we get those done and get those moving? As well as the industrial land studies, how can we get that done and get that moving so other projects that are for economic development can get through smoother and they're not holding up like they previously have. So I'm struggling to see what the difference would be and you know, for Mr. Brewer to get more support on this and get a clarification, more clarification from Tumwater, because Tumwater, the email I just got, they still say, you know, we sent by our previous letter, and their previous letter is saying that they oppose this. And it's very clear that they the letter opposed the docketing of this matter based on a technical review of the proposal. And then it's like, we stand by that letter. But we understand the possible benefits to our partners. So I'm struggling really to see, especially after we just went through the whole Tumwater, half of it, the part of the Tumwater UGA project and getting through all of that done. And then just, I feel doing something completely opposite. Especially something that they oppose. I am really struggling to see how this would be beneficial, especially for this year at least, to add it on to the docket. And Commissioner Edwards, I saw your hand up.
And just on that point of order, Madam Chair, there is a motion by Commissioner Edwards to add it to the docket.
Okay.
You may want to entertain a second. If there is a second, the conversation will continue.
Okay. So there is a motion on the table to add this item to the docket. Is there a second on this? I'll second it for discussion's sake. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
So as part of that discussion, I guess my argument would go back to what does it hurt to add it just in case they iron out their, I don't know if you want to call them differences. I don't know that they're differences. I think it's just the process. And then we can make a determination farther down the road if this is something that we want to prioritize and get moving down the road, if we want to do something different that we haven't done before. But if we don't put it on the docket, none of those options are available for discussion until next year. But it's no guarantee that they're going to happen this year, even if we put it on the docket. It just gets put on the docket of one of those issues that we might not get to. But then again, we might. But without it being on the docket, we can't. So that's why my position is to put it on the docket. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just, unfortunately, I'm just not there yet. Like I see your point, Commissioner Edwards, and I'm really struggling with this because we always want to prioritize citizen requests, but our docket is so overburdened this year, and there's so many priority items that have been pending for so long, and it's.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Because we're still in discussion.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just didn't want to get left out before you. I would just say that, I wouldn't be bugging about this issue if maybe we were going to entertain something next month or the month after that or in July or, we do budgetary issues sometimes quarterly or semi-annually, that kind of thing. In this case, once we close the door, we can't reopen it again until next year. And so that's why I'm saying, why not? What's it really hurt? Yes, we might not be able to get to the bottom of this at this point in time, but at least it's there as an option. We eliminate any possibility of having that option to do something if we don't put it on the docket. Thank you. And I see Commissioner Menser's got his hand up.
Commissioner Menser.
So Commissioner Edwards says, what's it hurt? Put on the docket. He will beat us up in a couple of years saying, how long has this been on the docket? Staff has been on here since it creates an expectation that something's going to get processed in maybe the time frame that's not reasonable. And so that's, I think, the issue. As I talked to staff when we were doing some follow-up stuff last week, I said, as commissioners, the easiest thing for us to do is put everything on the docket. As Commissioner Mejia said, we want to be responsive to the citizens. I mean, unless there's a really bad proposal, and that does happen once in a while. But most of the time, citizens have some pretty good ideas, and they're things that we would like to explore. But these are kind of long-term changes when you're talking about zoning changes and stuff. And it'd be really easy for us to do the easy, you know, politically easy thing, which is just to say yes to everything and have a 45 item docket, and then the citizens are happy because their thing got on the docket, but then it's not gonna get done in the amount of time. And then we're gonna get criticized because something's been there since, 7 years, 5 years, 7 years. We had things on there for 10, 11 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but in the past. So that's an expectation. So these are why these are hard decisions for the commissioners. I think we have to step up and make these decisions. The professional services budget, what was it, $50,000 we budgeted? And Josh is nodding, so that's not gonna go very far. That's gonna maybe help us on 1 or 2 key projects that have a technical component where that could be a really appropriate plug-in, but that's not gonna flush through these really larger projects that we have, kind of a backlog of. So those are just my thoughts hearing the debate.
Commissioner Edwards, that's a follow-up.
And then Commissioner Edwards, I'll go to you and then I'll call for the vote. That way we can move on.
Okay, I just want to commend Commissioner Menser, bringing up that some are bad, some ideas are bad, and some ideas are good. In my estimation, this idea is good. And so for that reason, we ought to put it on the docket, see where it goes. I think it's a good plan for economic development in our community. I am a big advocate for economic development. And I believe it's going to be all good jobs, good issues, not detrimental. So that's kind of where I'm at. Thank you, ma'am. We'll do whatever at this point.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just end with, I definitely want to encourage economic development in our community, and I want to encourage, citizens to come forth with their great ideas, but we have to get our baseline done. I feel like we have to get through a lot of our, even our concerns from our planning commission, getting the industrial studies done. And once I'm hopeful that once that goes through, that, once citizens have requests like this, that our docket will be minimized, right, Josh, to a completely tolerable level. This is me being very hopeful, and we'll be able to get to those requests. But a lot of the items that we currently have on there have been pending for so long, and I don't want items sitting in our docket just to be sitting there without being worked on. It just doesn't. I believe our preliminary docket is a good place to be, and it gives citizens a chance to maybe either garner more support or get clarifications or be ready for the next time this comes along. And hopefully by that point we would have less items on our docket, when it would be definitely a viable option for us to add it to the docket and be like, okay, we have the space. But I don't want to add another item just to add it on. And, now our list is at what, 24 or 34? I apologize, because there were 23 before and we added 11, right?
Yeah.
So there's 34 items. And some of those items haven't, were on the docket last year and haven't been worked on either. And I want to, make sure that those items get a chance this year too. With that, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser? Commissioner Mejia?
Nay.
So we have 1 aye, 1 abstain, 1 nay. So this item remains on the preliminary docket. Thank you.
If I may, I just wanted to say a quick note of appreciation. This is essentially an item where we are a victim of our own success. We've been able to build a process where docket items move through the process, and so people are applying. So even as we're clearing the backlog, more applications are coming in. It will be an uphill battle. This will be an ongoing conversation. But I just wanted to provide my appreciation to the board and the tools that we have to get there. And we've had 5 hours of discussion previous on all of these 36 items. So sorry for belaboring the point this morning again, but I appreciate the time.
And yeah, all of these items are important, Josh. I agree with you. They, definitely want to encourage citizens to apply, but we definitely want to get through that, especially from my point of view, I want to get through that backlog first. And, I would encourage the citizen who applied for bar holdings, to keep on, and we'll definitely review this. I have it on my list as one of the high items I added to the preliminary docket. So I'll be taking a closer look at it next year. With that, any additional comments on item 4A? Okay. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 4B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is related, I'm sorry, go ahead. This is related to the Development Code docket item A7, related to the Low Impact Development LID Code update. This is in the process of addressing the Thurston County zoning ordinance Title 20 in the Olympia Urban Growth Area zoning Title 23, as well as addressing the limitations of the Low Impact Development Code that was adopted in 2016. For the benefit of the public, the Planning Commission reviewed this item the last 2 weeks of October, and October 6th and November 3rd, 2021. They held a public hearing on December 3rd, 2021. And also the Planning Commission unanimously recommended the board to approve this item as presented. The Board of County Commissioners reviewed this item on February 3rd, 2022, and also on March 1st, 2022, resulting in directing the staff to bring this item for you to consider setting a public hearing. After setting a public hearing, you will have the opportunity to receive public testimony related to the details of this item. And after that, you will be in the position to approve, change, modify, or not this proposal. And the public hearing requested for you is to consider setting for April 19, 2022 at 3 in the afternoon. And I believe Andrew Goldman is here to answer any additional questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Bond here with Community Planning. I have no more information to provide this morning. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Sorry, I was asking for questions and I was on mute. I was wondering why no one was answering me. I apologize. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, ma'am.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
Nope.
Okay, I don't have questions either. Thank you. Okay, now moving on to item 5A, contracts to support rent and utility assistance program, and this is from Public Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a new item for you today, and I apologize since you didn't have the opportunity to review this, but this is somewhat of an expedited process that I will hope the board is understandable and supportive with this process. And this is related to suspending the rental assistant contract with the Community Action Council. They occurred on February 24th, 2022. Last week, the board authorized to getting into a contract with a vendor to continue to provide emergency rent and utility assistance to those members of our community who are in need. Under the Community Action Council, there were organizations that were also providing the similar assistance within the process. Obviously, by suspending the contract with CAC, the Community Action Council, those organizations also were left somewhat in limbo. So this proposal is for you to consider the county to get into services contracts with those organizations. And those organizations is CLO for $25,000, Innovations Human Trafficking Collaborative for $25,000, Family Support Center of South Sound for $25,000, Safe Place for $25,000, and Senior Services of South Sound for $25,000. And again, this is just complementary to the actions that you have been informed over the last 2-3 weeks. Tom?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Webster with Public Health and Social Services. So that's a good summary. Just a couple things to add. I want to clarify, Senior Services for South Sound has not been providing services prior to this. We have reached out to them because we think it's important for seniors who may have limited access to technology to have some support in applying with Live Stories. So we've reached out to them and they've indicated they're willing to support us in this effort. So we've added Senior Services for South Sound. And these organizations are helping with application intake. They're not making actual payments. Those payments will be made by Live Stories, but they're assisting their clients collect and submit the application materials to receive this assistance, as well as helping with some outreach activities.
Thank you.
And the performance of this contract, the contracts are through December 31st, 2022, just to complement that.
Although to add to that, I would not expect these funds to last till December. These funds will probably get us through, hopefully, the remaining funds with Live Stories. So probably for the next, 3 to 4 months or next few months.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm taking it, this is new, right? We didn't discuss this.
There's a new item for you.
This new item, so,
for you today.
so if I'm questioning, it's, because we haven't had any discussion on any of this yet. And going back to what we're going through right now on the audit process with the Community Action Council. And the only way I can say this is kind of harsh, but for some reason, they seem to be under the impression that we, as the granting agency of this pass-through money, are not allowed to know where the money went. And I don't understand how we can have an audit or an investigation if they're not supplying us with the information that we need to move forward on this investigation on whether or not there is any fraud. Now, all across the country, there has been a lot of fraud with this distribution of federal money. So it's not unique to Thurston County. I want to make it as simple as it can possibly be to make sure that we do not have fraud in our distribution of funds. So my question, and maybe dependent on the answer, will kind of limit my discussion further, but my question is, are there provisions in this new contract that are going to state that if there's an audit situation, if there's an indication that there's some fraudulent activity here, that we will get full cooperation from those entities that we're going to send this pass-through money out to make sure that we can nip this in the bud, if you will, quicker rather than later, because I see later coming due to a lack of cooperation and in our first audit finding. So I don't know who would answer that question, if it would be Robin or Tom or Romero, but we're in limbo yet today on this investigation because of a lack of cooperation. And I am very concerned about that. So I see Robin did have her hand up, Madam Chair. I don't know if you can see the screen from where you're at.
So I would just say that our current contract with the Community Action Council included that type of language. It is standard language when we are passing through state or federal money. And we do have that language in our contract with Life Stories and in these contracts for the by and for subrecipients. So the language is there.
Well, I guess then that magnifies my question. Why are we still having this delay of information so that we can continue our investigation to make sure, because we're the pass-through entity that's, I mean, I know it's federal dollars and eventually they're gonna wanna know, but before we can tell them, we need to know. So why are we not getting cooperation from the Community Action Council if the language is in place?
Tom, do you have an update on that?
Yes, I do. And so I do want to kind of report that last night I did receive an email with CAC did provide some information last night, and they've indicated that they will be providing additional information later this week. So I want to kind of put that out that CAC has indicated that they will be providing the information that we've asked for as required under contract. So we are expecting to receive, we received some information last night. And we expect to receive additional information later this week from CAC with the information we requested. So CAC, I appreciate the response from Thurston, and they have indicated that they're intending to comply with our request for information.
Do we also have a, just to jump in on Commissioner Edwards' point, don't we have a executive session?
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair. I scheduled an executive session for this Thursday, and there is a lot of updated information that we need to provide to the board related to this matter.
Okay.
We're not in the position to provide it right now.
Can I jump on your point? Tom, are you saying that they are no longer taking the position that because they suspect we might provide information to law enforcement, they do not have to provide the information? That's no longer their position?
I believe that is correct. They've indicated that they're willing to provide the information to us, and they have, yes, indicated that they expect us to use the information as appropriate, as we of course would do to implement the program.
Well, that's good news, and I do appreciate Commissioner Edwards' questions. I think you're right on point with what you're saying.
Okay, and that's refreshing that we're getting that. I guess my concern is what took so long if the language was in the contract to have them provide that information so we could have had this investigation going on in a timely fashion, and we would not have had to withhold this funding from citizens out there that are very much in need. And so I'm kind of stymied. Robin, you said this information is in all of our contracts, but what authority is in there to say you've got 24 hours, 48 hours, I don't know, a week? I don't understand the delay in the first place. So
we also did not understand the delay, Commissioner.
What was that again, please?
I said that we also did not understand the delay.
I know, but if we don't have any new language in what we're going to do now with these new groups, what's to prevent the same philosophy from taking over at their organization? I'm just wondering, and maybe legal can jump in on this, can we put a time in there?
I have a lot of updates for you on the executive session, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it will be appropriate for Elizabeth to give you a legal opinion at this point.
Okay, how about this? This is just, my dilemma is, I may sound aggravated.
You're asking, I mean, if I could, you're asking us to approve contracts
Yeah,
before that
yeah.
executive session. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to ask certain questions to.
That's my problem. If we wait 2 days, if we have an executive session and then we come out of that satisfied that our questions have been answered, I would probably be very inclined to support this. Do you see where I'm kind of the dilemma I'm in?
I absolutely understand the dilemma and the conversation, Commissioner. This is just an attempt from staff to move forward on the process to continue to provide services. The board has the option to delay this item for next week.
Well, no, I don't even want to delay it until next week.
So all that is part of the preview, delay it to next week. Tom can correct me. I don't think it's going to be detrimental, but yeah, you have the option. Staff is just trying to move this forward to be responsive to the citizens' needs. That's
and I appreciate that. And I want to be responsive to the
so,
citizen needs.
But certainly, if you have questions and if you want to wait after the executive session, this item can be moved to next week. Tom, is that an issue?
No, I think moving it to next week is okay. I will also say, just to maybe add, these information is being provided to Live Story. So also we would have access to this information under the Live Stories contract. These agencies are not doing final eligibility determinations. They're helping assist clients submit applications. So it's still the Live Stories contract, and the Live Stories would be the ones holding client information that ultimately, if there was an effort to receive information from a provider, it would most likely be through Live Stories in that contract.
Commissioner Menser, and then I have a question. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to go back to get a little bit better understanding of these contracts, because I think what you said there, Tom, might be important for me. The fact that these are they're not really doing exactly what CAC did. What they're doing is probably unlikely to lead to audits and stuff like that. They're helping applicants get sorted out. But am I to understand that these 5, or you said maybe 4, you said maybe senior services, no, but that 4 of the 5 of these were under a subcontract with CAC?
That is correct.
Through our subcontract, they were further subcontracting to these entities to help out in some way?
Yes, that's correct.
So now that we've suspended, we're just basically going around and continuing that work that will then flow to Live Stories or Gecko or whatever it was, Gato, what was it? So now we would have a contract, but then that information would flow to that entity, and then it would flow out the way it was, what it was previously. Is that what was being proposed here?
The record keeping of any type of application will fall back to Live Stories. As Tom stated, those organizations with 25,000 will not be issuing the checks. They will facilitate in the applications involved, facilitating those individuals within those organizations they serve to submit applications. It's a facilitation contract.
And are these, so the motivation for this is Live Stories needs that help, or these entities are asking us, hey, we were in the middle of doing this work and we like doing it, or we need to do it and we want to keep doing it to the end of the contract? Like, what's the motive? This seems very complicated to have all these different entities doing all this different stuff. Is it necessary that we have now 6 entities, not 1, providing this service in totality?
Yeah, so one of the requirements of our contract with the Department of Commerce with these funds is that we work with what are known as buy-in for organizations. So 2 of these organizations are buy-in for organizations. Cielo and Innovations Human Trafficking Collaborative are both buy-in for organizations. So it was important to reach out to underserved and hard to reach populations. And so that's why CAC, in our contract, we required them to reach out and partner with these organizations to ensure that these funds reached, making sure we were doing a good job reaching out to our Spanish-speaking residents to access the services, those experiencing domestic violence or trafficking, so they could access these services. Family Support and Safe Place also became partners, primarily serving their existing clients. So people who are already working with Safe Place or Family Support, rather than having to go to another agency that could work with those 2 agencies. So so part of this, Commissioner, was required by Commerce to specifically reach out and partner with buy-in for organizations. The other organizations, including Senior Services, was to be helpful to reach specific populations that those agencies have an expertise in reaching to ensure that these resources could reach those people who may not have as much access to CAC or may not be as familiar with CAC.
So is that why we're bringing senior services into it now at the last 11th hour?
Yes, because one of the things Live Stories uses a web-based kind of application process. So the concern is that there may be some seniors who have limited access to technology or familiarity with technology, or they may not have an email address. And so having someone who can help them collect the information and submit that application on their behalf is seen as valuable to make sure those seniors can access these services.
And this is $25,000 a piece for each one of these?
Right.
Correct.
That's funded out of this pot of money?
Correct.
Okay.
When you get done, Madam Chair, I'd like to add something in here.
Commissioner Menser asked my question, so thank you for that. Go ahead. So go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
When it comes to executive sessions, I don't know exactly why we're going into an executive session. I don't know what that's going to read, if it's a concern about litigation that the county may be involved in or not. I haven't seen the information yet. But my concern is, in the paper of record for Thurston County, which is the Daily Olympian, on Sunday, there was quite a big article that ends up being pretty confusing about what this problem is that the county, and I feel like I'm ending up getting a black eye because I'm withholding and taking an action, maybe unjustifiably, and I don't believe that for a second. So I just wonder about this executive session. I have no problem at all airing my dirty laundry, if you will, in the public eye and discussing this as to why we took this action. I want the public to know that the Board of County Commissioners took this action because there was a reason for it. And I don't want the confusion out there. I don't know if they'll end up writing an article that lays it out a little clearer or not, but I'm very concerned that it looks like we're at odds with a long-time organization in our community that's done a lot of good work. And so therein is my concern about doing something or discussing issues in depth behind closed doors. I'll put a plug in for 5 county commissioners right now. At some point, we're going to be asking the citizens if we could have 5 county commissioners. For the public that's watching this, you might know, even our prior discussion on other topics, we never discuss any of our work issues amongst ourselves prior to it, and we can only do it in this venue, I guess is the best way to put it.
Public setting.
And this public setting with prior announcement and all that. And I'm not sure that that always does justice for the public. And so I'm very concerned that we kind of do things behind closed doors to get things done. Going behind those closed doors, we never know what's going to take place until we get behind the closed doors. But I am very much in favor of open government. And I want the public to know in the end here what brought this all about. I even hesitated bringing this up this morning because I was concerned it would look like retaliatory or something, and it's not at all. I want to get to the bottom of this and help our county auditor get things straightened out. So I just make that as a statement. I guess if it won't hurt to wait until after this, I'm all for waiting. I don't want to delay the citizens getting their assistance, though. That's the second half of that concern. And Tom, if you think it'll go ahead and won't matter, then I guess I'll wait.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add, if I can, my opinion, it certainly can wait till next week, but also there's benefit to moving faster so these organizations can ramp up and start assisting citizens. So I think it's really, either option that the board chooses will be acceptable.
If
Move forward and work with either
if
option.
possible, Commissioner Menzer laid it out probably better than I, but I would like to have the information before we make the decision, but I'm not against making the decision after we get out of our executive session, if that's legal, if we can do that, so that we can help Tom, help the citizens in this county. So.
That's okay with me.
Is that okay?
You can take an action after the executive session.
Okay, I don't know what you need on that.
Commissioner Mejia, is that okay with you if we delay this till Thursday morning, then we'll all feel more informed?
So we can take an action after that executive session?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So remove it for today, that sounds like. Yeah.
So we'll remove this item until Thursday.
And ma'am, I'd like to just follow up by telling Tom, thank you for your commitment to doing the good work that you do, you and your staff trying to help those in need in our community. I want to re-emphasize that. I know you're working under some tough conditions, and I want to commend you for doing so, sir.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes,
And,
thank you, Tom.
just one last comment, and again, my apologies to bring this item. The intent from staff is not to surprise the board, and I think it just proves, like you stated, Commissioner Edwards, the conversation the board has is always in the public setting. This item is new. This is the first chance to have the opportunity to discuss it, similar to the docketing process. So I appreciate that perspective, and I appreciate your diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this item is being moved to Thursday, March 17th after our executive session.
And
With that,
we'll modify the agenda accordingly.
thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on. Thank you, Tom, to our next item, which is item 5B, Amendment 1 to the Washington State Department of Health 2022 through 2024 Consolidated Contract.
So this item you did review last week, Commissioners. And as you may recall, the Board of County Commissioners approved a contract between the Washington State Department of Health and Thurston County to have this consolidated contract. When we processed this back in January 11, 2022, we provided the board an indication that this is the first step. And the second step was through an amendment that specifies the dollar amounts and the specific activities on that amendment. So this is amendment number 1 to the contract that you approved back in January 11, 2022, which includes $4,288,401. And the activities associated with this contract includes the COVID-19 mass vaccination, foundational public health services, infectious disease prevention sections, infection disease prevention sections for strategies, different strategies within that context, maternal and child health block grant, Office of Drinking Water Group A, Office of Drinking Water Group B, Office of Immunizations for COVID-19 vaccine, and recreational shellfish activities. And that is really in alignment to some of the decisions you made during the budget process. This is just the instrument to get the money and start working on those strategies. Kurt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Interim Director for Public Health and Social Services. The County Manager did a great job of summarizing this issue, and I know you discussed it last week as well.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No question. Thank you.
Nope.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Kurt. No questions from me either. Okay, with that, we'll go on to extending items. Commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. Item B, the County Manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of March 15th. And then we will adjourn. At 3:30, we will have our Transportation Benefit District meeting. So with that, we'll move on to our Transportation Benefit District meeting agenda for March 15th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 3:30. At 3:35, there will be an opportunity. There will be an approval of the March 15th, 2022 agenda, approval of the meeting minutes from March 16th, 2021. At 3:35, there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board. At 3:40, we'll go through department items. And the first department items is item 3A, ratify the election of the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District officers for 2022. Scott?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Scott Lindblom, the County Engineer with Public Works. The first item, as you mentioned, is the ratification of officers for the 2022 Transportation Benefit District. And in early January, the board voted to have President Mejia continue to be the president for 2022. The vice president would be Commissioner or Vice President Ty Menzer, and Commissioner Gary Edwards in the role of the TBD would be the member of the TBD.
Thank you.
That's not the way it reads.
Yeah, we need to modify that. There was an error on that, so we're in the process of changing it.
So I am
Yes.
going to be an appointed VP. Okay, I didn't remember.
Yeah, there was an error on the AIS, so we'll revisit that. We'll change it.
Okay.
Who? I thought it was Commissioner Edwards. Is it not? Is it
No,
Commissioner?
it's Commissioner Mejia, President and Vice President Commissioner Menzer.
Okay.
What the information that you have before you was last year. And will be modified to reflect the decisions you made earlier in the year.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions
No.
on that item? Okay. Item 3B, the 2021 Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Annual Report.
Yes, good morning again. This item, number 2B, is the annual report, which is a required document to be submitted and accepted by the board each year. In it, the annual report includes the status of the transportation improvements, cost, expenditures, revenues, and construction schedules. As you're aware, the TBD is not funded, so typically this annual report is quite brief. And in that report as well, it does highlight the officers for the 2021 board members for that. And again, this report is for your review and approval as the TBD.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Or Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Okay, no questions either. And then item C, and I talked to Scott last week about removing this item and moving it to April, which is the presentation for the state of the transportation system. And I'm going to ask the board members if they're okay with moving this item to April.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so that item, and this is item 3C, is now being moved to the month of April. Thank you. And now moving on to item 3D, the presentation, and this is federal infrastructure bill funding.
Yes, thank you. This presentation will highlight what we see coming down the pike for federal money coming down from the recently passed infrastructure bill. And just so you're aware, staff has been researching different opportunities to use that expected money that is coming down. Our priority is really going to begin by focusing on pavement preservation as a priority, but we'll also be looking at any other funding opportunities that we may see. So this afternoon, we'll kind of give you a highlight of what we found so far and our path to move forward. And if time allows, I may touch a little bit on the Moving Ahead Washington package that was recently passed just late last week.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I don't know if it is directly applicable to what we're discussing at this point in time, but Scott, are you aware that Senator Patty Murray has opened up for some earmark comments to be passed on to her office on needs that we may have here in Thurston County?
I did just hear a little bit about that the other day, and it is something we'll be looking into.
I want to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity to let our senator know if we've got specific needs that we could identify.
I send an email to all the elected officials and appointed directors last week.
Did I get that?
Yes, you should have it on your email.
I must have lost it in my email, okay.
Outlining the opportunity, and I asked them to let me know if they're planning to submit any programs or projects as part of the federal allocation.
Okay, sorry, I missed that, sorry. I should have known you'd be on top of it.
No, clarification.
Okay, Scott, that was my only question, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mansur, questions?
Nothing, no.
Yeah, and I've asked Scott for this to be kind of a monthly just update for the TBD because as you know, like the money is coming down and things might change depending, hopefully not, but just so we're all updated on what we're doing with the new infrastructure bill funding. Anything else? Okay, so with that, we'll adjourn, and that concludes the Transportation Benefit District meeting. Thank you, Scott. Okay, moving on.
Madam Chair, a break, if I may.
Oh, okay. We'll take a 10-minute break. That works for the commissioners?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we'll be back at 10:50. Thank you.
You're live.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. And we are back. It is 10:51 a.m. And we left off on the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of March 22nd, 2022. With that, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 agenda. Approval of the board meeting minutes from March 15th, 2022. An opportunity for the public to address the board. And with that, we'll go with the county manager's update. County manager.
Yeah, I will follow up with any items that need to follow up as a result of your public testimony this afternoon.
And then we'll go through consent items. Item 3A from Public Health and Social Services, Human Resources Resolution to adopt a classification and create a position.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. During the 2022-2023 biennial budget process, the board authorized a new position, a medical assistant position in the Public Health and Social Services Department. So it takes a little time. We didn't have an actual classification for this particular position that you approved. So this particular items for you to consider approving the medical assistant classification and establishing the new position in Thurston County. Including in the job specifications of this new classification, the salary ranges from $3,464 to $4,607 per month. And that is in alignment with the budget decisions we made late last year.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser.
No.
Okay. No questions for me. Next item, item 3B, appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah, for your consideration, commissioners, is for you to appoint Ms. Elaine Clam as the city representative from the city of Tenino to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and that will be a 3-year term from March 2022 to March 2025. And again, that's a representation from the city of Tenino. Jeff, any additional perspective?
I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I would just add, I think is this new city council person with
Yes,
the city of Tenino, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the approval of the voucher list, and this is from March 7th, 2022. Questions on that? We'll move forth to department items, and the first item is from the Auditor's Office. Ordinance changing precinct boundaries due to redistricting 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And last week, the Auditor's Office provided a briefing to the Board of County Commissioners related to potential boundary adjustments that included 9 precincts, repealing 2 precincts, and 37 precincts that needed to be adjusted as a result of the legislative changes and redistricting. The Washington State Legislature approved. Well, it was a long process, but it was approved in 2022. So this particular item is a little bit different from the motion that you have outlined before you. And in fact, the next step in the process is for the board to consider setting a public hearing for you to hear public testimony related to the proposed precinct changes. We will review the action for your consideration next week. And Auditor Mary Hall is here to answer any questions and provide additional perspective.
Auditor Hall.
Yeah, I just want to say this is our normal redistricting that we do every 10 years. It's quite a big task. And if you haven't looked at the maps, Congressional District 3 extends a lot more into the southeast part of the county. It's just under the city of Yelm. We have a lot more of the 35th district, extends a lot more to the east, pushing the 2nd further east, and the 20th further south. And then we also gained a new legislative district, District 19, which is in the southwest corner of the county. So these are routine precinct changes that we're required to do to adjust our precincts to align with the new congressional and legislative districts. And we'll need to have a public hearing on these.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I don't see that this is requesting.
No, I'll change the motion because the motion.
Yeah, our
is on the
apologies.
agenda. Yeah, it's not accurate.
That was,
Okay.
yeah, we sent a clarification this morning and Romero has it.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, is for you, the motion that you will see next week is for you to consider setting a public hearing for April 12, 2022 at 3 in the afternoon. So this motion is not accurate to what the action you consider taking next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser?
I would just say to the public, there was a comprehensive presentation on this to the board last week. So if you have any questions about it, it's live streamed and able to be reviewed.
Thank you. And
Well laid out presentation, by the way, Mary.
Very well done.
yeah,
Thank
very
you.
well done.
Yep, staff did an outstanding job.
Well, thank you, Auditor Hall. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next item, which is grant agreement for Washington State Department of Agricultural Affairs Program Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, this is in relation to the project, what I call the signature project at the county fairgrounds. You may recall a couple of weeks ago, staff provided you with an approach as to how we can probably have a phase one of this project that included just about the cost of $503,000, which includes demolishing the existing building and maybe looking as to how we can secure additional grants to construct. So within the funding strategy included the $250,000 for the real estate excise tax that were set aside for this project. And also in that strategy included $250,000 from the Washington State Department of Agriculture grant. So this particular item for your consideration is to approve an agreement to receive the grant from the Washington State Department of Agriculture and the amount of $250,000. So that is, I want to connect the dots on that briefing related to what we call a signature project at the county fairgrounds. Jeremy, Josh?
Thank you, County Manager Chavez. I don't have anything to add to your great summary of the proposed grant. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess the only thing I'd ask is, are we gonna get an extra 10%, or what does that actually mean when it says?
The 10% is procedural. In case that we get additional money.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Let's leave it
Then
in
we don't need to come back to the board.
Good,
For
thank you.
additional action. It provides flexibility.
I think you could make that 25%.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
We're consistent with the procurement policy.
Yes, yes, sir.
Sorry.
Commissioner Menser?
Fair Board's excited about this and I'm excited about it. So good news.
Yeah, this is great news. I know that this was something that, you know, they'd been waiting for a bit, and I'm excited that this became available for the project that they have in mind. So exciting news. Thank you. Next item, information technology, Mattel.
Yes.
Phone system building 2.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a little bit, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser have seen this item. And this is a long-term plan that started back in 2014 with the intent to replace the aging phone system and voicemail systems that we have currently across the county. And the replacement included to upgrade the Nortel to Mattel software, which enhances the communications and the voicemail system in the county. Since 2014, since this has been very tasking, we have taken many different departments, offices, and buildings and continue on in those upgrades. The only 2 upgrades remaining in the main campus is upgrading Building 2 and Building 4. So this particular proposal is for you to authorize the next step in the process, which will change, will upgrade the phone systems on Building 2 for the cost of $55,630.29. And also that this is included in the current budget. Dennis?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT Director. I think Romero covered it well. Unfortunately, this project has kind of lingered a bit, but we are almost there. So we got these last two buildings. I've been pressing to get this project completed since I came on board. It'll allow for a lot more functionality as everyone will be on the same phone system at that point. And it is Mitel. Sorry, I think.
Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
Okay, next to Public Health and Social Services, item 7A, set a public hearing on an amendment to fiscal year 2019 HUD Annual Action Plan and an amendment to fiscal year 2022 HUD Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, as part of the normal process of the Housing and Urban Development Annual Action Plan, you need to hold a public hearing when you approve the plan and also when you introduce amendments. This particular item, we would like for you to consider setting a public hearing for April 19 at 3 in the afternoon to consider two amendments. One to the 2019 Annual Action Plan. This is related to the coronavirus, Corona Aid Relief Economic Security, the CARES money that we received back in 2020. And we received an additional $300,000 from the Community Development Block Grant. And this is related to the pandemic. This is not related to the regular CDBG money allocation that we have. So the amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan is to add the $300,000. The next item is to consider amendment to the 2020 Annual Action Plan. And in this particular item is moving $130,000 from between two projects. From the Low Income Housing Institute, the Fleetwood Apartments Rehabilitation, moving $130,000 to the Low Income Housing Institute, which is Martin Way Phase 2, also as the Lehigh, that will construct 64-unit multi-family permanent supported housing. So, and again, it's for you to consider a public testimony before you approve the amendments to both the 2019 and 2020 Annual Action Plan. Jacinda? Correct me if I stated wrong or you provide additional perspective.
Thank you, County Manager Jacinda Stelchis, Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. Just want to make sure that I am weighing in that the two Lehigh projects, the Fleetwood Capital Improvements and 2828 Martin Way Phase 2, they will be continued to be fully funded. So funds are being kind of swapped around there, but both projects are fully funded. We're not reducing any funding to those projects. And this amendment will allow those projects to move forward in a timely manner.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
So the 300,000 is already committed?
Commissioner, yes, that is already committed in our 2019 Annual Action Plan. Is currently committed to vaccine and testing, coordination and rollout. And we have heard from our IMT team that it could be better used at the leasing and QI facility, quarantine and isolation facility, leasing and operations activity.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser, questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I don't have questions. Thank you, Jacinda.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is item from Public Works, item 8.8, resolution and called for sealed bids for furnishing a supply of various asphalt materials.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a yearly request from Public Works for you to consider a call for sealed bids for many different supplies related to asphalt and road maintenance materials. And this in the past has been proven fruitful, and in this year is going to be even more so where we secure the prices of the materials based on the current market. At this point, you know, the oil prices are very volatile in the economy, and who knows what is going to happen down the road in the next few months. So it is important for us to secure the prices of those materials so Public Works can continue to provide road operation services on the county roadways. The result of this, if you approve, the staff will come back from Public Works for you to consider awarding the contracts as a result for the issue for seal bids. Mike Lohman is here. Mike, any additional perspective? Are you there?
I am. Thank you, County Manager. Good morning, Commissioners. I don't have anything to add. That's a great summary. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Is it a direct correlation with the price of oil that is affecting this?
Well, not necessarily. This is every year about this time, we bring this item for your consideration. And this is really an attempt to secure materials, to secure the vendor, and to secure the prices.
For this summer's construction?
For the summer activities. So my point and the reason that I said this is more so imperative because how volatile the oil prices are currently in our economy. So it's important.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser?
No, I just wanted to clarify this is an annual, and I do remember seeing it before, so it's kind of standard operating procedure, just to make sure you have the materials, so. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll review our standing items with item 9A, Commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. Item 9B, the County Manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of March 22nd. We will adjourn. We will have 2 public hearings either at 3 or hopefully soon thereafter. The first item from Public Works, a public hearing to consider a contract for solid waste operations, maintenance, transport, and disposal services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a long process in the making, and this is a public hearing where you will be receiving public testimony related to a proposed contract with Republic Services for long-term services on the maintenance, transport, and disposal services of the solid waste across the county. At this point, staff recommends only one action for you to consider closing the public hearing after we receive public testimony, and then staff will come back with official briefing depending on the testimony that you had to continue the conversation, ultimately asking the board to approve this contract. The second public hearing that you have next week is for you to consider a public testimony on the expansion of the Board of Health. And this is related to House Bill 1152, actually is in gross second substitute House Bill 1152, which is requiring, in this case, the county to expand the Board of Health, and this proposal before you is to expand it to 8 members, including members of the community as well as additional elected officials from the cities. If you review that ordinance, and again, depending on the public testimony, at this point, staff is recommending only taking one action to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony that you receive, we'll follow up with an additional briefing.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in both public hearings. Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Edwards.
Are we going to be hearing that public hearing as the Board of Health?
No, because it's an action by the Board of County Commissioners.
Will the public be able to provide in-person or comments through Zoom for these public hearings?
Yes, we have a hybrid option, in person or via Zoom.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. I'm good, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any additional questions, comments on these 2 public hearings?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the Board of Health. And that will conclude our Board of County Commissioners agenda for March 22nd, 2022. Our next item is the review of Board of Health draft agenda for March 22nd, 2022, and I'll pass this to the chair. Commissioner, go ahead.
Kurt Harden, our interim director of public health social services and administrator for Board of Health is here. Kurt, I'm going to ask that we go quickly since we're pressed for time. So the meeting will be called to order at 3:30 or probably thereafter, given the public hearings that we have. Approval of the agenda and meeting minutes from February 8th will be taken up. There will be a proclamation for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Kurt, anything we need to say about that?
That's going to be a presentation that's going to be presented by Mark Moffett, but that should be fairly self-explanatory. We've done this in years past. And Mark, do you have anything to add?
No.
Questions for Mark or Kurt on that item, board?
No.
Okay. Then we'll have the opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. Department item number 1, opioid litigation update. And Commissioner Edwards, you had asked for a couple of things and we kind of broke them into 2. This is the litigation update that you wanted to know about. And then Kurt's going to follow up with you on more dial in what you want to see presented. And at the April meeting, we'll have kind of more about fentanyl and overdoses and things like that. So this will be a fairly short item, just kind of what's the status of the litigation that we were engaged in. Kurt?
Yeah, and while it has Katie Strozik as the presenter, it's going to be prosecuting attorney's office that will come in with the update.
Scott Cushing, most likely.
Yeah, Scott Cushing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next item is natural gas and air quality. Art Starry is listed. Is Art here?
Art is on the line, yes.
I am here. So as I understand it, we're trying to get some information together that lets people know about kind of the impacts, use of natural gas, emissions, and kind of climate change impacts as it relates to the use of natural gas versus electricity or other fuels. And so I'm trying to put some material together with that. And I'm also going to see what I may be able to bring in Allison Osterberg or Chris Hawkins, who have much more expertise on this topic than I do, to help with the presentation. But it's still a work in progress right now, but that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, and I think the focus was less on climate change issues. It was more on public, health. There's some new data and studies about indoor air quality with natural gas appliances that I thought, because it does connect to strategies in the climate plan, that's the kind of more narrow focus. Okay. I don't want to get too far. Okay. We've had, for example, last year, a kind of broad public health effects of climate change. And so I don't want something like that. It's more going to be focused on this one narrow issue.
Yeah, no, that will be the idea, is to try to narrow it down to the natural gas discussion. So okay. I will work on that. Thank you.
Questions from the board. Commissioner Mejia.
Just a comment. It would be good to partner with ORCA. I mean, especially on this presentation, if that's the kind of the scope that you're trying to go with, Commissioner Menser.
I threw out that as a possibility. I don't know. I'll leave that up to Art.
I will check with ORCA to see if they're available to assist with this.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Art. COVID-19 update. Kurt, why don't you kind of explain what the concept of this item is, item 6?
The COVID-19 update is going to be for the public to hear where we are with COVID-19, where we see we're going in the future, because as we've noticed, all the trends are in a positive direction for COVID-19. We're anticipating that the federal emergency will end at the end of June, on June 30th, because of information we're receiving. So we're one, going to say where we are with COVID, and 2, where we see it going in the future. Because it is starting to wind down, and we're going to be becoming coexisting with COVID, I believe is the phrase I've heard, as it transitions from pandemic to endemic.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions. Thank you.
Travis?
Any word from L&I yet? You sent out a.
Yeah.
L&I's currently updating their guidance. They gave us, they put on their website bulleted areas that they're focusing in on, which the county is currently following. And then we are anticipating their guidance soon, but their website says that they're under revision right now.
But so nothing new just yet.
Well, there is some new information on their website. It's not in a document that's been published, but there is new information, and we're in compliance with that, and it follows the current state masking requirements.
So we might get an update here at this point in time when it comes in. Might be. Huh?
We hope they will provide an updated document on the guidance. But as Kurt stated on their website, they have high-level guidance, and we are already meeting that guidance. So nothing new at this point.
Okay, great. Yeah. This is, in a sense, a little bit of a placeholder, knowing that there's moving pieces. We'd like to give the public a chance to understand, okay, given where we are, what should they know going forward? Because people might be, a little bit confused because of all the different moving pieces. So that's kind of what this item will capture, and Dr. Abdumalik will be part of that. We'll have Board of Health members related activities, Health Officer report, Director report. Kurt, anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's all, as I know it today, that's all fairly self-explanatory, and then we'll be, reporting more out on next Tuesday.
Any other questions from the board on the Board of Health agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis. The proclamation for Women's History Month will be included on next week's agenda. The proclamation and Zoom link have been shared with a member of the Zonta Club and who is recruiting some other members to attend and accept the proclamation.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Menser?
No.
Okay, and I don't have any questions. Okay, next item, advisory boards and commissions.
There are no new applications. The 3 included are carried over from the last couple of weeks for the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
It doesn't sound like we're ready to do something yet, right? That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Menser?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, and then I will be bringing in the next 2 weeks a recommendation for the Planning Commission for my district. And that's been a long time coming. I've received a lot of great applicants. So I'm really happy about the quality of applicants we received. Okay, there's no more questions, comments. We'll move on to the PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. We are back to our full staff of 2 this week, and so the Friday 5 will be out this Friday. We haven't had it the last 3 weeks due to staffing, and the website is continuing moving forward. We are all meeting with the Interpersonal Frequencies group next week to go over content. It's a content workshop. So that's moving forward. And then I had made an offer to fill the position to support the website project, and the person declined. And so I reopened it, and I will be doing interviews next week for that. So hopefully we can get a good candidate in there and get working on it, because it's a ton of work. So pending any questions, that's what I have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, and I don't have questions. Thank you, Megan. Next is our legislative update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attached in your packet is the last report for the 2022 legislative session, which finished last week, Friday, I believe, and they finished the short session on time. So in this final report, you see all the bills that we have been tracking with the recommendation, whether support neutral or not. Not gonna be going through each one of them. Then anyway, that's the end result. Some were bills that we were tracking died, and some will soon become into law after the governor signs. Thank you. And I'd like to publicly extend my appreciation to Deborah Mangia. She continues to be a great asset to help us navigate the legislative process on the county's legislative agenda. And she was very pivotal in, I believe, in securing $75 million for one of your high priority items on the Thurston County legislative agenda, which is funding for the Nisqually River Bridge estuary. So good job. If Deborah is listening, thank you very much. And at some point when she has the time to have the chance to recover from this legislative session, I will entertain lessons learned with her and see how we can bring this to the board later on in the year.
Thank you. Questions? I see your hand up, Commissioner Menzer. Go ahead.
Ramiro, can you explain the scope of this document that you've created?
Yeah.
Like what's it like? Usually it's like 10 pages. Now it's 3. What is it that you've whittled it down to?
So we whittled it down is from the last report, some bills that just died, and those are crossed out. And the bills they're just waiting to become into law as they have been delivered to the governor's office.
Are these all the ones that we were tracking that have like gotten to the finish line?
List. At some point it was 4 pages long, and over time they were just narrowing down because some they died, they didn't got out of committee.
So if something got passed that's not on here, it's because we weren't tracking that as relevant to us, or.
Thank you for the clarification. This is not the entire legislative session.
Right.
No. No, this is only the bills that we were tracking as a county.
Okay,
Yeah.
Even if they got passed maybe a month ago?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just trying to figure this out because every year I struggle with this legislative session. It's like, we go through it because we're trying to take positions, but then like it gets like, so that's kind of more of our role, right? Figuring out what's on our legislative agenda, what we're gonna have Deborah focus on, what positions we're gonna take. So it's like, we spend a lot of time on it when it's early. And then our role, so to speak, kind of dwindles. We're not meeting with legislators anymore. But then that's when the legislative process really picks up steam. And all this stuff gets passed, and I often don't even know what got passed, what got changed at the 11th hour. And I learn about, some of them I learn about because they're on here, but I'm also on the climate group, or I'm on LOT. They care about a series of stuff that affects wastewater, clean air. ARCA cares about that. JASCOM cares about this. Intercity Transit cares about that. I get lost in the bills, and doesn't seem to be. I haven't found the easiest way for me to figure out where the dust settled, like what finally got passed that matters to all the different groups I'm part of. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I mean, I'm wondering if there's a chance for the board to have a briefing. I just never know who would give that briefing. Like nobody is really, this is what has mystified me since I got here on the board, is like no one is really from the Thurston County level or any other level, frankly, job is to follow what the legislature has done, is doing, what the meaning is. I mean, with Keep Washington Working, for example, that went by all of us, including the prosecutor. I mean, we didn't even realize what had gotten in there for like 6 months or something like that. Things like that happen, and they're like, how can we let that happen? For example, there was all the discussion about 1310, the law enforcement stuff, and the legislature was going to try to fix some of the problems. I still don't know where all that landed. There was stuff about, I'm on Alliance for Healthy South Sound. We were working on a shore-friendly program. Well, there was a bill in the legislature that was going to require consideration of the same practices that we were trying to spend money to voluntarily encourage people to do. That actually really matters to whether or not that program should continue in the current form. I don't know where that bill landed.
Is that the 200-foot setback?
It's just to say that when you're gonna do improvements on your shoreline property, you have to consider a series of like more shore-friendly techniques if they would work, and if not, then you have to go through kind of a
I
process.
think it was net gain instead of no net loss.
That was a different bill, but yeah, they're connected in a way. But a perfect example is OPMA. So I've been in many meetings in the last month where everybody's talking about how we're going to handle our meetings for this group, that group, and nobody seemed to know. And I said, well, I thought this was all being handled through a bill in the legislature that was going to make permanent the OPMA waiver provisions that we've been operating under the governor's things, and nobody seemed to know. So I mean, just the lack of like a central repository of understanding of where the legislature landed is really frustrating to me. So I don't know how to fix that.
And and I share some of your concerns because as you're tracking any bills, I think I bring for your consideration is something that may have a direct effect to the county. There's many other bills that go through the process. They will be almost really having almost 2 full-time individuals just to track all that. That's the beginning. And then the amendment process that each one of those go through that is just some of the amendments are difficult to track. What I'm trying to do in some of the amendments, and you have exercised that, is you have taken a position based on the original bill, and then an amendment has been introduced, and I have brought this back to you, and then you have changed that position based on the amendments, or you have supported the amendment only, not necessarily the overall bill. The 1310, very complex. And at that point, it was just leave it as to how the law enforcement will be part of that conversation. There's many bills, and you're right. I also wish that we can probably have a tally of all the bills they passed, the new laws, and giving us at least a synopsis of what the new law will be doing. In some instances, like 1310, it was a fix. In some of the amendments that were proposed and never got through that. Never materialized, and I think that is one key element of that piece never got changed. And there were discussions until last week about that, as I recall. So I wish that I can have
Madam Chair,
solution for you, but
does WASAC, do you know if WASAC's going to put out? I should know this because I was on Legislative Steering Committee last year, but it seems like they might put out kind of a summary of like. I mean, sometimes their stuff is almost too detailed, but anyway, I guess if you see something like that, make sure to share it with the board because there's all the different committees. There's the Land Use Committee and Paul Jewell, and there's Juliana Rhoda as the Public Safety, and then there's Public Health.
Yeah.
But
and the Engineers Association, so yeah.
Sometimes we put so much time into following the twists and turns, but we never actually put any time into figuring out, well, where did it land? What actually happened?
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Commissioner Menser. It would be nice to have some of that. And there hasn't been anything from WASAC yet, but I'll definitely keep my eye out to see if anything comes out. But things are constantly changing. I mean, from one day to the next. And I remember we were meeting with the LSC, as you might remember, every week. And it was just, bills that were on, like, 1 week, they were just completely different the next week. And so, yeah, I agree with you. It'd be nice to kind of see, because as I sit in all these different committees, it would be nice to kind of, have a cheat sheet and say, okay, this is what's, tracking on here, and this is what's tracking on the other pieces. Robin, I saw your hand up.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, it really is a question of how much time you want to devote to this. I know in agencies I've worked in the past, we do a morning half hour every day during session to track just a handful of bills and where they were going. This is why we hire Deborah Munguia, and if there are specific bills you're interested in, we can always ask her to track those and give us regular updates on them. And then there is, for those who are tech savvy and want to check it themselves, there is a legislative bill tracker that is available to the public that you can sign up for on the legislative website that you could check, because bills do change, as you've all stated, on a daily basis. So you can check the bill tracker every day to see what happened to the bills you're interested in. You pick and choose, but there are so many, and it is quite difficult to follow them all without devoting a lot of time.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So
I'm sorry. I did want to add that I have seen WASAC with blogs on some of the major bills that WASAC was tracking. So there is something out there from WASAC. I can find that and forward that.
yeah, from the major bills, but they kind of align with what we were tracking, and then what other kind of like this sheet, like the numbers that we were tracking. It does not do all the bills, kind of like what Commissioner Edwards Commissioner Menser was requesting. And I do have that, so I'm happy to forward that along. But it's kind of,
the list is not all inclusive, and I think that's what probably Commissioner Menser is looking for, an all inclusive series of laws that become into law.
There is an all-inclusive list of final bills passed that the legislature publishes every year. It's not out yet. It takes staff a little while to compose that, but you can find those.
thank you. That's good to know, Robin. Okay. With that, I mean, would it be nice to have a debrief with the board and Deborah on some of these things? I think, Commissioner Menser, would that be helpful to you?
It definitely would. I just don't know, like Deborah, I want the right, I don't want to create work for the wrong person, but I'm just not sure for whom it would be easiest to present what I'm looking for. That's what I've struggled with figuring out.
That is what we pay her for.
Okay, well I'm sure it would be good anyway to kind of debrief with her, so I would support that.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards, are you okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Ramiro, if you could schedule, once Deborah has some downtime, a briefing with the commission on a debrief of the legislative session for this year. Okay, with that, we'll move on to briefing public hearing decisions pending. The first item is EDC BIPOC Advisory Task Force.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not necessarily an action. I just want to probably, if you feel comfortable with the proposal, the Economic Development Council provided to you on the briefing February 23rd. There was two elements on that briefing. One, it was an update on the Thurston Strong. They provided numbers and how they have been effective in issuing grants to businesses and individuals. And the second portion of that is the BIPOC Business Task Force. And there's a copy of that PowerPoint is included in your pocket. But I'd like to draw attention to will be on the back page of the second sheet of the PowerPoint, which states the Thurston Strong Business Task Force candidates. And it states the Thurston Strong is seeking to assemble a BIPOC business task force to help identify structural and social-cultural deficiencies and barriers that may hinder equitable access to market opportunities. The goal is to identify proactive solutions that stimulate economic equality and advancement. So this is something the board has funding a portion of that position. And as you may remember, trying to remember the name of that person. Is Myra Pena. She's been hired. They board through the ARPA funds, funding a portion of that position. We just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with this approach, so that we continue the process with the EDC, in partnership with the EDC, to have this group being standing. I believe it is a great strategy to focus on some equality access to market opportunities on minority-owned businesses. And so I just really looking for a thumbs up, sideways, or if you have any additional questions. And Jenica is here to further elaborate on this particular item.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
This was a follow-up to a briefing that I missed, I guess. Okay, well, I don't have any questions.
I do have a question on how is this different really from what the chamber is doing? Because they have, they don't have a task force per se, but they have, you know, a person as well who's working with minority businesses and promoting that. I do not remember the name right now.
I could follow up with the chamber to understand that position more and provide more information. But this group is really going to be looking at systemic barriers and other suggestions that they can help provide both the EDC or our jurisdictional partners to help with those BIPOC-owned businesses engaging with within our economic development ecosystem.
Yes, a follow-up would be nice, Jenica, please. Thank you.
So you want to hold this item until we have a follow-up, commissioners?
Yes, that would be, I would appreciate that. I don't have a problem with that. I just kind of want to know what the main difference is.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comments, questions on this item? We'll move on to our next item, 2022 Heritage Grant Awards and Historic Commission Project Budget.
Yeah, this is a follow-up briefing they received last week on March 9th related to two items the staff presented. There were 6 projects. There is recommendation for you to consider awarding on the historic, as part of the historic grant issuance. And those projects are for the City of Lacey, Leader Photographers and Preservation Access Project, for the City of Tenino Depot Restoration Project, Olympia Heritage Commission, for the project documenting, preserving, and presenting the story of Olympia Indie music history. Also, the next is the Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum for the Bigelow House Storm Window Project. Next is the South Thurston County Historical Society, the Tenino Depot Museum Collection Stewardship Project. And the last but not least is the Rochester Citizens Group, which is the Sweet Hole Dance Floor Restoration. The total amount recommended for this grant is $29,000. Also, you heard from the chair of the Heritage Commission that the second part of this request is to add $6,000 to their budget to have an informational booth, an informational kiosk at the at the regional athletic complex, also known as the RAC, in the near the Coxbury area. So it's 2 requests for you, is for you to consider awarding grant awards for the 6 projects, and as well as increasing the budget for the Heritage Commission to an additional $6,000 for the kiosk, informational kiosk at the RAC. Jeremy?
Thank you, County Manager Chavez. I don't have anything to add to your excellent summary of the 2 items we're requesting decisions on today, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions. I'm in favor of moving ahead.
Commissioner Menzer?
No, I'll defer to my seatmates. I wasn't here for the briefing, but it sounds like reasonable proposals.
And I guess I might add, there's money in there
Oh, yeah, no, there's plenty.
for dedicated purposes like this.
And we have a very robust ending fund balance.
So yeah, Robin said that we had the capability in that budget to add this. So I know the goal has been to kind of spend that down, and this is a great opportunity. So with that, do I see some thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways?
Up.
Up. Yep. 3 thumbs up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll go on to commissioners' items. First item is ERP funding update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a brief update related to the ERP funding. I just give the floor to either Robin or Dennis to give a brief update on where we are on that one.
So Dennis, why don't you start with an update on where we're at with the project?
Sure. Okay, so as you know, we've given numerous updates. The project is in full swing. We have fallen behind some of the schedule from mainly around the design area, and this is mainly around just certain things being overlooked as we went through the statement of work and as we kicked the project off. And you know, this is one of the biggest projects that the county's undertaken. So some of it was just we didn't know until we got into the project, I think, and that's been kind of an ongoing issue. In addition to that, we did also have some communication issues in the project, and I think with the help of the sponsors, me, Robin, Diana, and Maria, we've really put forward a lot extra focus on that to ensure that communication is flowing all around the project, so we could make sure that we're meeting deadlines going forward. So with that being said, we asked the vendor to provide an extension to the original schedule, and we were looking for a 3-month extension. Originally, our go live was in October. We were trying to push it to December. Something to note with this project is it isn't like you could only push the go live a week or so at a time. It needs to be quarterly due to the impact on the financials for the county. As well as payroll, there's a lot of dependencies with that. So that being said, we got a change order from the vendor. It's been about a month ago, I think now. We have done some very hard negotiation and came down over 50% on what the initial change order cost was. And we're looking to meet tomorrow, I believe, with some of the executive folks from the vendor side, as well as all the sponsors, to finalize that change order. With that, and the change order now is under the contingency of what the project is for. So is that it in a nutshell, Rob? Without getting into too many details, if not, we can kind of spin on the details for a while.
We don't want to put too many details out because we are still in negotiation with the vendor. But as Dennis said, we have been very successful in our negotiations from their initial estimate of what it would cost for us to extend the project by 3 months. So we are under, if you recall, commissioners, every contract that you approve has a 10% contingency. We are now under that contingency. So we will be able to move forward with the project within our current budget.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
You know, that 10% thing that we have on all the time, in today's inflationary situation, I'm almost wondering if it shouldn't be more at some point, but maybe this isn't the time to have that discussion, but at some point down the road.
No, 10% can be quite substantial on some of your contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
So we're delaying by 3 months. Is that kind of the update, and we're on sort of on budget? to
Right.
10%, that's kind of the takeaway.
It is the takeaway. At the time we put this on your agenda, we would have been having a conversation about how to increase the budget. But at this stage, we're able to move forward without having to do that.
Okay.
So very promising.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I want to do a time check. It is 11:46. Ramiro, are any of these items?
No, the items 2 and 3 should take less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then the rest of the time you can continue the conversation on the vaccination testing.
Okay, so with that, we'll move through the emergency housing ordinance renewal.
Yeah, the current emergency housing ordinance that you have in place is lapsing June 9th, 2022. And the board, based on the discussions, you may consider continue to have this on your on the docket to make it a permanent. That was a preliminary decision by the board. So I want to make sure the board is aware of the comment to lapse of end date of June 9, 2022, the current interim housing ordinance. And as you know, if this is the direction they would like to extend for yet another time until the permanent regulation may be in place, we need to take a couple of steps in terms of having a public hearing, and procedurally we need the time to make sure that we are aligned with the board's decision. So the question that I asked for the board is, would you like to have another extension of this interim housing ordinance at this point? Very narrow question.
Okay, questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards?
No.
One thumb up, one thumb down for the boardroom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, to move forward, so we'll bring the next administrative steps for you to consider extending this ordinance, and the next step in the process, I believe, is an AIS to set a public hearing. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, next item, Capital Land Trust property acquisition.
Yeah, the board received a letter dated February 24, 2022. It is related to somewhat of a procedural. The Capital Land Trust, by law, needs to notify the county on the potential of trying to secure a grant to purchase a conservation easement in Thurston County. In this case, they're applying for a grant to purchase a 228 acres for a conservation easement on Totem Inlet. That is in, the request is just notifying the intent of the Capital Land Trust. As a result, I asked staff from CPED to provide a perspective whether there's any issues related to that, and their response is attached to this packet. And let me read this out loud. Community Planning has reviewed the attached notice provided by Capital Land Trust and has no concerns. A review of the community planning documents, including the comprehensive plan and the shoreline master program and proposed update, indicates this proposal is consistent with county planning policies. So I just want to circle back on the letter that you received in February, and at this point, I don't believe, from the staff point of view, that we need to send any documentation raising any particular issues to this particular proposal. But obviously, if you have any issues, we'll facilitate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards?
Well, I don't have any questions, but why wouldn't we support them?
No, and the no action is supporting.
Okay. It says we can write a letter. Okay.
Do they ask us to write a letter?
We can write a letter.
Is that a request? I didn't catch that.
Well, I think that's what the local may, at its discretion, submit a letter to the RCO identifying its position with regard to the acquisition.
Yeah, that's the state law, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I don't know.
that's if we probably had an objection or something.
Objections.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think
Okay, I'm good. I just
Stay out of their way and let them do their good work.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm in agreement. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the last item, vaccination testing requirements, resolution 160167.
Here we are again, commissioners.
I thought we dealt with this last week.
We put it off till this week, but I
So
think it had to do with L&I, didn't it?
what we're trying to do is, based on the information that we received from the board, you know, just to encapsulate the conversation, I believe Commissioner Mejia wanted to continue with the ordinance as is, 16067. Your position perhaps was to align with the county manager's recommendation, and the recommendation again from the county manager was to align this ordinance, the 16067, with the current, the local emergency declaration, which ends on June 30, 2022. The proposal from the county manager is if the board aligns this resolution to the lapsing of the local emergency, as a result, resolution 1607 will lapse and no longer in existence. There was a conversation whether we want to take items out of this resolution specifically related to the weekly testing. And also Commissioner Menser introduced the idea that perhaps employees retired after April 1st, 2022 must be fully vaccinated as be eligible for employment. So on your packet, on the last part, is somewhat of proposed language that I think is what the board, at least 2 board members would like to probably introduce. This is up for discussion again. My recommendation continues to be for you to align to the local emergency declaration. That's what the state is doing. The state may rescind that emergency declaration sooner than when it's supposed to be lapsing. If that is the case, I will bring for your consideration to rescind the emergency declaration if the state rescinds sooner. But also, if that is not an option for the board, then taking pieces out of this resolution becomes extremely tasking in terms as to how we're going to be going through this process. We have Maria here, Robin, and you know you can probably see so many different ways of this. They eliminated testing on a weekly test, and they have just employees to submit an acknowledgement of the weekly testing. I don't think that what would accomplish that, number one. This is a question for the board. And the other one is to employees to be hired after April 1st, 2022 to be fully vaccinated, to be eligible for employment. You know, that is an option the board may consider, but also it will affect on recruitment, and we have issues with recruitment.
Just to be clear, my idea was was after April 1st until the end of the Thurston County emergency order.
So,
in that narrow window.
Yeah, we can. So I think this is just, I think we try to capture the conversation, and again, this is up for discussion.
Okay, discussion, Commissioner Edwards.
Well, I'm opposed to the whole mandate thing. And I see no benefit to those folks that don't want to get a vaccination, other than there's the possibility they have a better outcome if they contract this disease. And so it seems to me that, I don't know the term, is it breakout? Is that what they're calling it? I mean, it seems like everybody that's getting vaccinated, it did not prevent them from getting the disease.
Breakthrough,
I guess. And it's hard to quantify the negative, because you don't know how many of those folks that got the vaccination wouldn't have got it or would have got it. You just don't know. So people get a vaccination, they still get the disease, and the benefit is there's no benefit except to themselves, and that's just possibly. If they're under a situation medically or whatever, allergic to a component of the serum, for an example, whatever it might be, they could have an adverse outcome. So I still think this is an individual choice. I think we're gonna learn to live with it. And I question what's the term fully vaccinated mean? Fully vaccinated, you know, then it went to a booster. And now, well, we need another one in a few months because we need another booster. But maybe everybody doesn't need that booster. Maybe just individuals that fall within a certain threat group need that booster. Or maybe everybody needs that second booster and the fifth booster is only for those that are in a certain threat group or an age group. So I just think it's all up in the air and we just better learn to live with this. And I don't think we ought to be penalizing any of our employees and making them pay for a test. So I want to do away with the whole thing. I just don't see any benefit to the whole vaccination process anymore. We did our thing. We're up around 90% or something like that. We were talking about herd immunity at 70% way back when. So we're well beyond that. Let's just get with it. And if somebody wants a vaccination and if they want to get a booster every 2 months, that's up to them. Let them do it. Why should we be telling them how to run their life?
So if I may, as a matter of clarification, would the board pass this resolution in a majority vote on August 24th? It was full vaccination was on the vaccines that were available at that time, either 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna and 1 of the Johnson & Johnson. So this resolution does not include any boosters.
No, what is the definition of fully vaccinated? Now, they're talking about more boosters and more, and maybe an annual shot.
So no, I just tried to clarify what the fully vaccinated means under the premise of this resolution.
Okay.
Commissioner Menser?
I don't have anything. My position hasn't changed from last week.
So
Yeah.
the same for you, Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, sir.
So we have 3 different positions. There's nothing,
Yeah.
we can't agree on
We
any
can agree on
element.
this, so we'll.
So we just write it out, right?
We'll just keep it the resolution and when, if I may, when the emergency resolution lapses, I will bring this item for you to consider lapsing this.
You know what? I wouldn't mind discussing this every week, to be honest with you. I think the science is changing, the information is changing, and it's daily changing. The quicker we can get rid of this, and maybe LNI is gonna come out with something next, this week. How do we know? We keep thinking they might. I don't know what it might be when they come out with it. To me, it's just another bureaucratic step of making it tougher to find employees and retain employees. So I think eventually any employee that was let go or was forced out or whatever, I think they're gonna sue and they're gonna be made whole. Somewhere down the road, might be a couple years down the road. But I think this whole thing was unconstitutional in my estimation. But that's just my position.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, public testimony.
Yeah, I briefly stated to the board, I will be reporting to a public testimony that you received related to the assistance that we provided for the January 2022 flood event, mainly on South County.
Okay, questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
No.
Mr. Menser? Okay, and then we'll move on to other commissioner items. It is noon, so we have a pressing commissioner item.
I have a pressing one.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Menser.
Sorry to do that, but we'll just take a second. Commissioner Mejia is covering Capitol Lake Executive Work Group for me tomorrow because of a medical appointment my daughter has. I don't have any chance to discuss with her anything about it other than in this context. Commissioner Mejia, I was in reviewing the materials. They're going to be discussing the various jurisdictional scoring of the preferred alternatives. Ours was submitted as an average. I don't know in what form or context this is going to be discussed, but I'm going to ask you to make it clear to the group that the score that came from the county is an average of the 3 commissioners and does not reflect any one commissioner's scoring, because I don't want public misconception about that. So if it's not crystal clear from the discussion and how it's presented, I would ask you to make that point clear.
Okay.
And I can probably give you a copy of the letter that we submitted. It clearly states that it does not include any specific commissioner's perspective. It's just a regular average. Yeah.
Because they talked about it as if they're going to be discussing all the individual scores, and they're not going to have our individual scores. They're going to have a amalgamation of the 3 commissioners together.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Could I add something to that, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm not on that group, but I know at some point they're gonna try and figure out who's gonna pay for what, or the percentage of, to do whatever they determine at some point, which everything's up in the air yet. And there was never an analysis of the upper Deschutes. It was always the lower Deschutes. And I still think there's impact from the upper Deschutes, so yet to be determined, I guess, what that might be, but I think the whole Deschutes River should be part of the analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, if there's no further items, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all. It just, yeah, good job.
Yeah, thank you.
See you